to give up my chance to enter Peking University for Anna, only to later overhear her laughing with someone, saying, "Elias, that idiot bookworm. I've got him wrapped around my finger. He even enjoys every moment of it." I didn't make a scene. I simply let go of any childish fantasies about love as an orphan. I worked myself to the bone, made it to Southern University, and joined the most promising research lab. Later, I heard she broke off her engagement publicly. At her engagement ceremony, she announced that I was her unforgettable first love. Without a shred of dignity, she threw away everything to pursue me, but by then, I was with Victoria, the most beautiful, understanding girlfriend I could ask for. I would spoil her to the ends of the earth, forever. Chapter 1. Elias, I can't figure out this problem. Can you explain it to me? The girl in front of me had delicate features and fair skin. Her eyes curved into a soft, friendly smile that was hard to resist. Her beauty was mesmerizing. I found myself briefly stunned. Elias. Oh, of course. I quickly gathered my scattered thoughts, picked up the pen, and started writing down the steps on a scrap piece of paper. Look, when you convert this to a logarithmic form, it's easier to solve. Anna's eyes lit up. Elias, you're so smart. If I were as clever as you, I'd definitely get into Peking University too. I met Anna for the first time in the library. Sunlight poured in through the towering library windows, casting warm light across my table, which was already piled with books. The atmosphere carried a stillness and the smell of knowledge, so quiet that only the rustling of pages could be heard. I was so engrossed in my books that I hardly noticed anything happening around me, until a book fell on the table beside me, breaking my concentration. I looked over, and there she was, standing by the bookshelf across from me, a little embarrassed. "Oh, sorry, I didn't notice you there." Anna's voice was soft, with a touch of apology. I waved it off, showing I didn't mind. "No worries, the library is big enough. A little noise now and then is fine. You're Elias, right? I know you," she said, seeming to want to start a conversation. I looked up, trying to recall, but no memory of a girl this striking came to mind. "I don't think I know you." She laughed softly. "Big shot Elias. I'm Anna. You really don't pay attention to who's always second place on the leaderboard, do you?" Her words triggered a vague memory. I did recall that the name right below mine in every exam was always Anna. Chapter 2. After that first encounter in the library, I started noticing Anna around me more often. "Elias, I solved the last question on the math test," Anna exclaimed excitedly to me. "That's amazing. Now I'm under pressure to keep up with you," I replied happily. She giggled, her eyes curving into little crescents. Scenes like this weren't rare between us anymore. Ever since she transferred to our class and asked to sit beside me, our relationship seemed to grow closer, and I could feel my feelings for her becoming less platonic. As an orphan, I'd never felt love from anyone. Anna's bright smile made me fall for her bit by bit, though I had no idea how to love someone in return, so I did my best to meet her every request. "Elias, your breakfast looks so good. Can you bring me one next time?" "Elias, I don't know how to solve this question. Can you help me?" "Elias, can I borrow your notes from last class? Taking notes is such a hassle." Every time she looked at me with those clear eyes and smiled, I would agree without a second thought. I must have been crazy. The orphanage didn't provide much money for living expenses, so if I wanted to buy something for Anna, I had to earn it myself. Fortunately, with my 2 years as top of the class, I found a part-time tutoring job, going every day after school to help others. I barely returned to the orphanage dorm by midnight most nights. When my dorm mate, Eric, found out, he shook his head repeatedly. "You're such a simp." If that's what I was, then so be it. I enjoyed every moment of it. Chapter 3. After morning reading, I rushed to buy breakfast for Anna. On my way back, I saw Duncan, the notorious school bully, walk out of our classroom for some reason. Top scholar, buying breakfast for Anna again. "Ah." He spotted me and gave a teasing smile, with a barely noticeable glint of mischief in his eyes. A strange discomfort rose in my chest, but I ignored him and walked straight into the classroom. "Elias, you actually got me the steamed buns from the place I mentioned yesterday. You're the best." Anna's voice was as bright and refreshing as morning dew, clear and cheerful. I didn't respond, just looked at her. Sensing something was off, she smiled and asked, "What's wrong? Stayed up too late studying last night?" I didn't answer her question. After hesitating for a moment, I softly asked, "Was Duncan here to see you?" Her smile froze, a bit of embarrassment flashing across her face. We used to be in the same class. He came to invite me to his birthday party this weekend, but I turned him down. He invited the whole class, so it would have been rude not to invite me. "But you know, I'll be at the library with you this weekend," she said with a hint of playful charm, her eyes avoiding mine slightly. I took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift from my chest. "I see." Seeing the relief on my face, Anna's smile returned, brighter than before. "Of course, getting into Peking University is my top priority now, right?" She gave my shoulder a light pat, suddenly showing a hint of closeness. We had already agreed to go to Peking University together. We were going to have a wonderful future together. Speaking of which, about Peking University. Chapter 4. You're really giving up on this competition. The homeroom teacher fixed me with a stern gaze. I shrugged, feigning nonchalance. Didn't you always teach us to make our own choices? I'm just choosing not to participate. Do you know that this competition could get you a guaranteed admission? This is the only spot our school has. The teacher insisted, but I knew he was genuinely looking out for me. Sir, my grades are good enough to get into Peking University on my own. Whether I join this competition or not makes no difference. I tried to explain calmly, though I could hear a faint trace of avoidance in my own voice. The teacher sighed, taking his glasses out of his pocket and wiping them. With your grades, getting into Peking University is just a matter of time. But this competition holds such high value. Giving it up would be a huge loss. I shook my head, doing my best to keep any emotion from showing. Sir, I don't care about that. Finally, he sighed, realizing that nothing he could say would change my mind. Then call Anna in, please. If you're not participating, she'll have to take the spot. Anna wanted to get into Peking University so badly. She'd be thrilled to have this chance. I walked through the noisy hall, lightly tapping Anna on the shoulder. Anna, the teacher wants to see you. Anna looked up, confused. Really? What for? It's probably about the competition. A classmate nearby teased with a whistle. Anna, is it time for the top spot to change hands? Anna burst into laughter, her innocent smile like light dancing under the bright sunlight. Hurry along. Don't keep the teacher waiting, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though my heart was oddly stirred. Anna walked lightly toward the homeroom teacher. My heart sank, feeling both happy for her and bitter in a way I couldn't explain. It wasn't until I saw her coming back, beaming with the registration form in her hand, that I quietly told myself, this is for the best. Chapter 5. Anna bounded up to me, her eyes sparkling yet carrying a hint of unease, making my breath catch. This competition spot was specially arranged for me, wasn't it? Anna's voice rang out near the autumn field, clear against the background sounds of basketballs bouncing on the sports field. I swallowed nervously, feeling a lump in my throat, unable to say a word. She seemed to notice my discomfort but only grew more excited, as if she'd just won a grand prize. You gave up on purpose, didn't you? I barely nodded, not really admitting it but not denying it either. A swirl of emotions churning inside me. Thank you. She leaned in and gently hugged me, whispering in my ear. I stood there dumbly, not knowing what to do, feeling her hair brush against my cheek, soft and fleeting like a delicate feather. Too quickly, she let go, as if this closeness had never been hers to keep, leaving me with a hollow sense of loss and confusion. Her laughter rang out, playful as ever. Since you've done me such a big favor, you're now officially my little assistant. If my assignments go astray, it'll be your job to bring them back to me. How could I ever refuse her, especially when she smiled at me like that, melting even my usually stony heart? Of course, I agreed so easily, as if this was a mission I was destined to fulfill. Chapter 6. That weekend, I arrived on time at the coffee shop where we had arranged to meet, my pocket holding the math notes I'd organized all night. I avoided the bustling crowd, doing my best to keep calm and look like I belonged. Then, from inside the coffee shop, I heard her laughter. Look at this fool, giving up the competition spot for me. In less than a month, he'll definitely confess his love. He even brings Anna breakfast. Oh man, I really thought the top scholar would hold out longer. Please. Everyone's at Anna's feet. It was her, with her friends. Among them were Duncan and a few people I didn't recognize. Anna's face seemed like that of a stranger. I froze in place, each word piercing me like a needle. My heart plummeted as I silently watched her laugh so freely. All my efforts, everything I'd done, was nothing but a game to her and her friends. All right, you guys go ahead. He's about to show up, and I want to play along a little longer. As Anna finished speaking, her gaze happened to catch mine. I stared at her, coldly. A flicker of shock crossed her face. Though she was the one who had deceived me, I could read a hint of panic in her expression. What? Hadn't she anticipated this outcome when she approached me? Was her guilt meant to fool anyone? Her friends noticed me too, and their laughter faded into silence, leaving the air thick and still. Anna's lips moved, but no words came out. Chapter 7. So, top scholar, now that you know the truth, there's no point in continuing this charade. Just make a clean break with Anna. Duncan spoke up, unable to hold back. What does this have to do with you? You're asking what it has to do with me. Duncan pulled Anna into a possessive embrace. Did you really think you could be with Anna? He sneered. Do you even know what the chairman's last name is? What makes you think the daughter of the school chairman would end up with an orphan like you? At that, I looked at Anna. No one knew I was an orphan, except. Anna turned her head away, avoiding my gaze, which only deepened the sting of betrayal in my heart. The red-haired girl beside her scoffed. Stop dreaming. Anna and my brother are the real couple. Their engagement was arranged ages ago. And you should know that before this goes any further. Seeing her resemblance to Duncan, a realization struck me. There was no reason to stay any longer. I turned around and left the place where my heart had been shattered. Before I knew it, I found myself back at the orphanage, where Eric jumped off his bed the moment he saw me. You're finally back. You've been coming and going at all hours. No one could find you these days. Did you know that Anna is the chairman's daughter? Don't say I never helped you out. I even have a list of her favorite things here. Call me Dad, and it's all yours. Just then, Eric noticed something was off. What's wrong? Did finding out she's a rich girl make you lose hope? Man, I thought it was something serious. Look, as long as she's okay with it, none of that matters. It's not like you two are getting married anyway. It's just dating. When she goes abroad, you'll probably break up, right? What did you say? Abroad? Eric looked at me in surprise. You didn't know? Her family has it all planned out. She's set to study overseas after high school. She's already passed her IELTS. I felt numb, with only a dull ache in my chest. So, the whole story about wanting to go to Peking University was just an excuse to get close to me. While I'd foolishly given up the competition spot, everything from the past seemed to mock my stupidity. No wonder she was doing fine in her old class, with no issues at all, yet insisted on transferring to my class and sitting beside me. No wonder she looked so happy yet a bit uncomfortable after getting the competition spot. I'd thought she felt guilty about taking it from me, and when I asked her why Duncan came to find her, she brushed it off with the excuse of his birthday. But now that I think about it, his birthday was 3 months ago. With the presence of the school bully and a rich kid, it was quite the spectacle. Why didn't I realize it then? Well, maybe I did notice but chose to ignore it because I trusted Anna. Now that my trust had shattered, the truth was finally revealing itself. Chapter 8. Monday meant school again, and as usual, I was the first to arrive in class. But this time, the lights were already on. Hearing my footsteps, Anna stood up right away. Let me explain. I walked up to her calmly. You haven't filled out the competition form yet, have you? Give it to me. Hurriedly, she dug through her bag and handed me the form. I'm sorry, I didn't actually need to. You can go. I had never spoken to her in such a harsh tone. Her face turned pale, her lips trembled, and she managed to choke out, Elias, you can go. I repeated. Go back to your old class, your old friends. She didn't move, just looked at me with a pitiful expression. An inexplicable anger rose in my chest. Shouldn't you have anticipated the consequences when you accepted that bet? I'm not clinging to you or seeking revenge. Isn't that good enough? Or do you, MS Jean, still want to keep playing with me? Her face turned even paler. No, that was just something I said. You know, in the heat of the moment, enough. You know how important this competition is to me, yet you, a pampered rich girl, didn't need it at all. And still, you gladly accepted it for the sake of the bet, didn't you? She seemed ready to defend herself again, but I didn't want to give her the chance. Looking into her eyes, I said firmly, I won't trust you again. I turned and left the classroom. Chapter 9. The days that followed passed as if Anna had never been in my life at all. I approached the homeroom teacher again, who had been incredibly supportive despite my constant changes of heart, even approving my competition registration. Of course, I would treasure this hard-earned opportunity. This time, I wouldn't sacrifice my future for anyone. Finally, I set off to compete. In an unfamiliar place, I was feeling a bit out of sorts, and the nerves hit hard the day before the competition. So, I decided to take a walk in the park near the hotel. While riding the elevator, I unexpectedly ran into Victoria from the neighboring school. Then again, it wasn't that surprising. She and I usually held the top 2 spots in the city and ran into each other often at various competitions. Naturally, she'd be here too. What a coincidence. Hardly. Victoria smirked. I knew someone nearly missed this competition, so I came especially to mock him. I was taken aback that the rumors had spread so far. Seeing my surprised expression, Victoria burst out laughing. Come on, lover boy, you look like you're in a daze. We found a conference room and chatted for a while. Having someone familiar around quickly swept away my anxieties, and we started quizzing each other on past exam questions. After some time, Victoria rubbed her eyes. It's getting late. Go get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day, and even though we're rivals in a way, I still want you at your best. In a daze, I made my way back to my room and soon drifted off to sleep, her words echoing in my dreams. Chapter 10. The competition flew by, and to my surprise, I felt amazing throughout. Even nailing 2 questions we'd gone over last night. Those last-minute reviews really paid off. As I walked out of the exam hall, I felt a rare sense of ease. First place, provincial training team. My homeroom teacher looked at me like I was a prodigy. Reading the announcement from the province, I scratched my head, grinning. This practically guarantees your spot at Peking University. Go submit your application. No, this time, I'm choosing Southern University. Peking University had been Anna's goal, but for me personally, I'd always preferred Southern University's computer science program. This time, I would follow my heart. With my admission guaranteed, life became more relaxed. With the teachers' help, I found a few well-paying tutoring jobs, and the employers treated me well, knowing I was bound for Southern University. But somehow, Victoria was like a shadow I couldn't shake. She came from a modest background, but her cheerful nature brought a kind of vibrant energy. Elias. I was in the orphanage office helping the director organize files when I heard her voice before I saw her. Victoria's family lived nearby, and they often came together to help out with the younger children, so everyone was familiar with her. The director glanced at her, amused. Here for Elias again, Victoria? Victoria laughed sheepishly, lowering her voice. Hey, yeah, director. Last time, Elias helped me with a couple of questions, and they came up in the exam. My mom insisted I invite him over for dinner to thank him. The director looked at me. Go on, Elias. No rush here. Don't keep her waiting. I put down the files and walked out with Victoria. My mom made sweet and sour pork just for you. You don't know how much work that takes. She'd never make it just for me. I'm only getting some because of you. Victoria bounced along beside me, chattering away under the sunlight. Feeling a bit dazed, I interrupted. Going to your house empty-handed seems wrong. Let me grab something for your mom. My dorm was just ahead. I rushed to the door, but when I got there, I saw someone waiting outside. Chapter 11. Perhaps hearing someone approaching, the person lifted her head abruptly. It was Anna. Elias, I heard you got an early admission to Southern University. Just then, Victoria came running over, slightly out of breath. Hey, why'd you run so fast? My mom isn't in that much of a hurry. Hearing this, Anna looked devastated. You too. I hadn't expected Anna to find where I lived, but considering her father's connections, she could easily look up my student records to locate me, although I didn't really want to deal with Anna. Victoria seemed amused. She tugged at my sleeve and said, Elias, though we agreed you'd meet my parents today, if this sister needs to talk to you, we can reschedule, but don't keep her waiting too long. Goosebumps rose on my skin, but I understood what Victoria was implying. Don't worry, I promised I'd go with you today, and I won't change plans. Anna, furious, stomped her foot, her eyes reddening as she turned and ran off. I went inside, grabbed a gift box of snacks I'd bought a few days earlier, and followed Victoria to her home. Victoria, however, seemed unwilling to drop the subject. So that was Anna. She's actually, well, she hesitated and then admitted, she's pretty good looking. Over these past few days, I'd started to understand Victoria's feelings, but reflecting on everything between Anna and me, I realized our outcome wasn't solely her fault. I hadn't known her well, we didn't come from similar backgrounds, and yet I wanted to pursue something with her. Growing up without parents, I had no experience of normal relationships, so when I met someone I liked, all I did was follow her blindly without thinking of how to improve myself or make things better for both of us. With all my flaws, how could I even think of pursuing someone as bright as Victoria? So, I steeled myself and told her, yes, that was the girl I used to like. Victoria pouted. So what? I don't think I'm any worse than she is. Victoria's vibrant, cheerful nature brought energy to everyone around her. She was truly one of a kind and didn't need to be compared to anyone. But you know I'm an orphan. Your parents would never agree to us being together. With my lack of family, connections, or any assets, what parent would want their daughter dating someone like me? But my words didn't seem to have any effect. Orphan or not, how do you know my parents wouldn't agree? They wouldn't. I've never known real love, and I'd be a terrible boyfriend. Victoria looked at me seriously and said, Elias, don't say that. My parents have brought me to the orphanage since I was young, and I don't feel any different from you. Sure, you lack parental love, but love isn't one-dimensional. You have the director's care, and you have Eric and everyone else as friends. These are all forms of love, and with enough love, you'll learn to love others too. So, how about you try loving me? That way, you'll also know how to love back. Her words filled me with courage, but I still didn't know how to face her parents. Would they really be okay with their daughter dating someone like me? Chapter 12. Let's wait a while. Your parents might not approve yet, so don't get too ahead of yourself. Victoria hummed in amusement. Just watch at dinner. My parents adore you. At her house, I set the gift box on the coffee table and greeted her parents nervously. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen had just brought out the last dish. You arrived just in time. Go wash up and sit down to eat. The atmosphere at the table was warm and cheerful, with Mr. and Mrs. Chen and Victoria each sharing funny stories from their day. They constantly added food to my bowl, piling it up so high I couldn't finish it all. Watching their family dynamic filled me with envy. If only this were my family. I shook myself from my thoughts, scolding myself for daydreaming in broad daylight. Please, don't give me any more food. I'm full. Victoria elbowed me playfully. See, I told you my parents really like you, After dinner, I offered to help with the dishes, but Mr. Chen stopped me. Leave them. Don't take my job. Mrs. Chen looked at Victoria and said, go help your dad. Victoria saluted her mother with a grin. Yes, ma'am, and ran into the kitchen. Mrs. Chen peeled an orange for me. Startled by the gesture, I took a slice, but before I could eat it, she asked, are you and Victoria dating? I was so shocked that I nearly choked, hastily waving my hands in denial. No, I wouldn't dare have my eyes on Victoria. Mrs. Chen said, well, if you are, that's fine too. We watched you grow up, and you're a good kid. We can tell. Victoria, too, has feelings for you. She hasn't been able to stop smiling these days, and when she talks to us, every other sentence is about you. A glimmer of hope flickered inside me. Could they really not mind? But then Mrs. Chen added, however. My heart sank, and I couldn't help but ask, however, what? She gave me an embarrassed smile. I heard there was another girl you liked before. If you're not serious about Victoria, then just let it go. I immediately straightened up. No, Mrs. Chen, I really do care about Victoria now. Really? I nodded quickly. Really? Mrs. Chen gave a knowing smile. Victoria, stop eavesdropping. I realized that the sound of water in the kitchen had stopped at some point, and the glass door reflected two figures. Hearing this, Victoria awkwardly slid the door open. Her face flushed. Chapter 13. After officially starting my relationship with Victoria, I joined a research group. In the provincial competition team, a young professor from Southern University's Information Security Lab extended an invitation. I was deeply interested in computer security, certain that it would be a promising field in the future. The research group also provided a salary, and any patents we developed could bring bonuses or be sold to companies. Only by making myself better could I feel confident in offering Victoria a better life. She was like a guiding light, helping me put my life back on track. In September, Victoria started college too, and we were reunited on Southern University's campus. She chose to major in finance and occasionally visited me in the lab, where the senior members loved teasing us. But one day, we had an unexpected visitor in the lab, Elias. I hadn't expected to see Anna here on campus, and I couldn't hide my surprise. Anna told me she hadn't followed her family's plans to attend an Ivy League school but had, instead, gained admission to Southern University on her own merits. I know it's embarrassing to keep finding you like this, but, she didn't finish, but her eyes said it all. I sighed. Why put herself through this? When I liked her, she treated me like a joke, and now she was desperately chasing me. This love, delayed by time, was never meant to have a future. She wanted to say more, but her phone rang. She gave me an apologetic look before stepping away to answer. Although I couldn't hear clearly, phrases like engagement and come back floated through the air. Once she finished her call, I told her firmly, don't look for me anymore. You're getting engaged soon, aren't you? I wish you and Duncan happiness. With that, I turned and walked back into the office. A senior saw me return and couldn't help teasing. Elias, who's that outside? A lingering romantic debt. Don't let it affect your relationship with Victoria. I laughed it off, thinking it was absurd. I told Victoria about it that very day, thankful that she trusted me fully. Chapter 14. A few days later, I received a random text message. Wait for me. Puzzled, I got a call from Eric. He was a year younger than me, now a senior, and not the best student. Who knew what he'd say? Come on, call me Dad, and I'll tell you something explosive. Say it, or I'm hanging up. Seeing that I wasn't playing along, he gave in. Check out the video I sent you. I glanced at my messages and saw a video. The video showed an opulent hotel lobby. The guests were dressed to the nines, clearly attending an engagement banquet. As the camera panned, it landed on the main stage, where the names read, Anna Duncan. So, it was their engagement party. I was about to stop watching, having no interest in the rest, when Eric urged, keep watching. Curiosity piqued by his insistence, I continued. As the video progressed, the atmosphere grew more tense and the crowd thicker until the engagement ceremony began. Duncan stood there in a crisp suit, wearing a smug grin. Anna was next to him in a red gown, her expression serious. When the MC announced the engagement, Anna suddenly grabbed the microphone and said, "No, I won't be getting engaged," and then ran off the stage. I was stunned. What? Eric's voice came over the line. Do you know why she cancelled the engagement? What reason? It couldn't be because of me, right? Well, it actually is because of you. I was working at the hotel tonight, and I overheard her telling her parents in the dressing room that she already had someone she loved, and he's here at Southern University. Clearly, she's talking about you. Chapter 15. I felt a little dazed. She had really called off her engagement because of me. Thinking of that text message, an ominous feeling stirred in my heart. Sure enough, that afternoon, as soon as I stepped out of the office, a figure rushed toward me. It was Anna, still wearing the red dress from her engagement party, looking exhausted and disheveled. Elias, I've called off the engagement. Can you forgive me? Can we start over? I took a step back. Anna, I thought you were a smart girl. Anna gave a bitter smile. At first, I thought I could just go along with my family's plans, return to my world, but I can't forget you. I've already broken off the engagement with Duncan. I sighed and shook my head. Come on, we're adults. You know we can't go back. Why? Anna suddenly shouted, her voice breaking. I had never seen her like this before. You gave up that competition spot for me, and I can give up everything for you. We're meant to be together. Anna, maybe I didn't make it clear before, but the moment I found out you approached me because of a bet, it was over between us. When love starts with deceit, it can never end well. Anna started to choke back tears. Are you really going to do this? I have nothing left, only you. I sighed. I'm sorry. Thinking I'd softened, she quickly asked, so, you've forgiven me? I shook my head. I still can't accept you. Of course, if you ever need help, I'll do my best to be there. But that's all. This is the best outcome for us. Her eyes reddened. It's because of that Victoria, isn't it? I won't give up. I turned to leave, casting one last glance back at her. There was a hint of madness in her eyes. Chapter 16. These days, my professor had secured a new research project, and the whole lab had been busy. I had much less time to spend with Victoria, so, by the time I realized something was wrong, the project was already over. I invited Victoria to go out for a meal, but she kept turning me down. Her strange behavior made me anxious, so I quietly called her roommate, who informed me that Victoria had been in a car accident and was in the hospital. Terrified, I rushed to the hospital. Victoria's mother was there, watching over her. When Victoria saw me, she seemed surprised. Hey, it's really no big deal. I just didn't want to worry you while you were busy, so I didn't say anything. Regret filled my heart. I'm working hard on these projects to give you a better life in the future. If you don't tell me when something happens, what's the point of all my efforts? At this moment, Victoria's mom interrupted, calling me out of the room. Elias, I didn't want to say anything in front of Victoria, but do you know who hit her? I was taken aback. Wasn't it just an accident? She told me gravely. It was that girl you used to like, Anna. She hit Victoria and then fled the scene. They haven't caught her yet. I remembered the crazed look in Anna's eyes that day and understood. Don't worry, ma'am. I'll take care of this, and I won't let Victoria be harmed like this again. After leaving the hospital, I dialed the number from that mysterious text. Why did you hit Victoria? Isn't it because of her that you won't be with me? Don't drag anyone else into this. When are you free? Let's talk. There was silence on the other end for about half a minute. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. Come to this address. She sent me the location. I showed up on time, but before I could knock, I was yanked into the room. It was Anna. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes bloodshot. She handed me a glass of water. So if Victoria was out of the way, would you come back to me? I took a sip of the water. It tasted odd, like something unfamiliar. Anna, don't make things worse. Making things worse. I made mistakes before. Yes, but I know exactly what I'm doing now. Anna looked at me, slowly removing her jacket. I felt something was wrong and tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. An uncomfortable heat began to spread through my body. Energy drink with liquor, you can't handle that, can you? I fought to keep control. My body reacted, but my mind was still clear. Just a little longer, I thought. Just a little longer. Sure enough, it wasn't long before the sound of sirens filled the air. I had called the police before coming. There was no way I'd let someone who hurt Victoria go unpunished. As the police escorted Anna away, she looked back at me, her eyes filled with despair. So, we really can't be together. I couldn't help but say, please, stop being so delusional. Anna was ultimately convicted for hit and run. I wanted no further involvement with her and didn't visit her again. Instead, I went to a mall, bought a ring, and spent all the money I had on me. In the hospital, in front of Victoria's mom and everyone else, I knelt by her bedside. Victoria, will you marry me? The girl I loved the most looked at me through tear-filled eyes. Yes, I will.